Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. This is Brandon from freestatecolorado.com with your weekly news roundup for July 15th, 2024. Nearly every week, I take a look at some headlines, news stories, and articles from across our great state. And as always, you can find the links at freestatecolorado.com as well as other original content. Recently, I interviewed Natalie Menton, one of our Liberty leaders down in Jefferson County. She's fighting back against these greedy county commissioners who want to take away taxpayers' Bill of Rights protections and permanently raise taxes in the county. I'll get into a news story on that here in a bit. Additionally, I spoke with Jacob Luria, the campaigns director for the Libertarian Party of Colorado. They have a recent agreement with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his campaign, and RFK actually signed a pledge showing his dedication to pro-liberty principles, and Jacob goes through that pledge with me on that video. And then just released an interview with Corey Hughes, a local historian and podcaster, on the big question, are Colorado businesses required to accept cash? Mishawaka is just northwest of Fort Collins. He was there having lunch. They said, hey, no cash. This led him to investigate and really, take a stand up for our American values. So check those out. Interesting stuff. But let's get into the news this week. First story I'd like to talk about is from the fencepost.com from July 12th, 2024. Nearly 2 million head of poultry are depopulated due to HPAI. All eyes on ag biosecurity. It's from Rachel Gable. The most recent report of highly pathogenic avian influenza HPAI has resulted in the depopulation of 1.8 million head of poultry at a commercial table egg facility in Weld County, Colorado. Colorado State veterinarian Dr. Maggie Baldwin said the state's dairies and poultry facilities have cooperated with her office diligently to reduce the spread of HPAI. Baldwin said the monitoring, testing, and reporting of HPAI in Colorado is the result of cooperation between producers and partners, including the state veterinarian's office, and is important to reduce the spread between dairies and poultry facilities. Quote, do I think Colorado has the most cases in the nation? No. Do I think Colorado has the most reported cases in the nation? Yes, absolutely, Baldwin said. So, interesting article. Definitely dive into that if you'd like. There's some good information there. I know a lot of people watching this have chickens of their own or buy chickens from or buy eggs and chicken from local farmers markets or neighbors. So really important to have that food security, right? That you're able to get eggs, you're able to get food from people in your community and not necessarily rely on some of these big companies because something like this can happen, right? Very interesting story. We'll keep an eye on how this continues to spread out with this avian influenza. Let's move on. From Complete Colorado, page 2. Joshua Sharf, July 9th, 2024. Denver's already swimming in sales tax revenue, now wants more. Denver already has sales taxes approaching 9%, and a proposal to support Denver Health would push that number past 9% if approved by voters this fall. Now, Mayor Mike Johnston's office is pushing the idea of an additional 0.5% sales tax increase to support affordable housing. The estimated revenue of $100 million over 10 years would be used to subsidize up to 20,000 units over that time. Wow. Greedy, greedy government. Aside from the problem that affordable housing programs almost never make housing more affordable, there's the question of why the city government thinks it needs the additional money. Over the last 9 years, the city has been raking in additional sales tax revenue hand over fist. First, let's do the numbers. So this is a good deep dive, kind of seeing where the city of Denver is getting their tax money from. They have record amounts of taxes, so much money in their coffers. Of course, they fail consistently to meet their objectives. The housing and the homeless issue in Denver has not been solved. It's been mismanaged, over budget, underperforming, as typical for a government program like this. So really, Denver voters, you have a choice to keep that money in your pocket where it belongs. People work so hard, can barely afford to live as it is now, and these greedy politicians just want to take more and more of your money. So Denver, don't believe the promises, don't believe the lies of these politicians. Say no. Say no to any new tax increases. It's just money's better spent with you. Let's move on. From the denvergazette.com, Jefferson County's commissioners seek elimination of TABOR refunds. Again, from July 14th, 2024, Anaya Moore. Now, this is something I've talked at length with Natalie Menton about. Check out that video if you're interested. But if you live in Jefferson County, you really need to pay attention. Your county commissioners are trying to pull one over on the voters, on the taxpayers. It's bad news. For the third time in 5 years, Jefferson County's elected officials are asking voters to allow the local government to spend all of the revenue that it collects above the taxpayers' Bill of Rights limit, thereby eliminating refunds to taxpayers. Yikes. For fiscal year 2024, that refund amount is estimated to be $54.4 million. Wow. Last year, the county refunded $39.4 million to roughly 210,000 property taxpayers. So there it is right there, folks. Property taxpayers. Property is expensive. Property taxes have skyrocketed. Mortgages aren't cheap. The cost of living is not cheap at all, especially in Jefferson County. So voters, I mean, you really got something in front of you here. The county's voters rejected the idea twice in 2019 and in 2022. But the county's commissioners this month insisted that after engaging with the public, this is them paying their $300,000 consultant, both qualitative and quantitative research, this is push polls and manipulative polling, voters need to decide the question again. Well, voters should say no. Voters should say, you're taking enough of my money. You got too much. Let me keep my paycheck. Let me keep it. Let me stay in my house, for heaven's sakes, with these ridiculously high property taxes. So check that out, especially if you're in Jefferson County. Well, let's go ahead and move on to CBSNews.com, July 8th, 2024. The Rock Church in Colorado Town face off in court for first time. Now, I wanted to bring this story back up because I did talk about it last year, and I think it's really important for what's going on with the homelessness crisis and the ability of faith communities to really step up to the plate and help out their communities. The church that sued a Colorado town, alleging their religious rights were violated, had its first day in U.S. District Court Monday. Castle Rock barred the Rock Church from sheltering homeless people in 2 RVs on their property last year, saying doing so is a zoning violation. But the church says sheltering the homeless is its constitutionally protected religious duty. Monday's hearing focused on the church's motion for a preliminary injunction, essentially asking the court to allow the church to continue sheltering people in those RVs while court proceedings play out. The RVs have been empty since the town ordered the church to stop sheltering people in December, but that could change if the judge rules in favor of the church. We are just trying to continue doing what we've been doing, helping those who need it most, said Ryan Gardner, counsel at the First Liberty Institute representing the church. The town of Castle Rock declined an interview, but told CBS News Colorado they have retained defense counsel to rigorously defend the zoning authority of communities. I get it. I get it. You know, Castle Rock, they don't want all of a sudden these RVs to be filling up their streets, neighborhoods, and open space with homeless people in them. I get that that's an issue. However, you know, this is simple. This is 2 RVs on church property where these people, homeless people, could get help. They could get support. They could get what's needed for them to maybe get back on their feet. And here's a church, a faith community, a church willing to actually bear that burden and absorb that cost. So, you know, I get it. You got to protect your zoning laws because that determines how your city's set up. But my real question is, why hasn't the Castle Rock Town Council or the Town Board of Castle Rock actually changed their zoning laws or maybe done something to help out a faith community like the Rock here, be able to meet the needs of its community and provide some shelter, some housing, and some stability to get these people on their feet? You know, the Town Council seems like they've kind of dropped the ball down in Castle Rock by letting this go to court instead of coming up with a solution that maybe could benefit the community. So we keep an eye on that story. I think it's an important one. Let's move on for now. This is from the denvergazette.com. Denver council members tie rise in hotspots crime to illegal immigration surge. I'm sure some people watching this would say, not surprising at all, right? Duh. You can imagine that that might be an issue. This is from July 10th, 2024, Alexander Edwards. A pair of Denver council members on Wednesday implied that the surge in illegal immigration over the past 18 months is linked to an increase in crime in sub-neighborhoods they represent. Council members Amanda Sawyer and Stacey Gilmore shared anecdotal stories of crimes occurring in hotspots in their respective districts during a committee hearing. Both law enforcement and city officials, including the Johnston administration, used the phrase hotspot, to denote an area with a spiking crime rate. The city, for example, earlier designated 5 areas as hotspots, places that by design will be getting law enforcement's focus in the administration's campaign to curb gun-related crimes. The specific areas are not necessarily the most violent places in the city, but they had experienced a significant increase in violence over the past year. So, yeah, I mean, I'd have to say this is probably true, right? How can you argue that there's not going to be some sort of negative consequences from having massive illegal immigration camps set up in different areas of the community? Especially people who aren't working, who need to survive. Maybe they don't have kind of the resources that the city thought they could provide these people. Not surprising that there might be some hot spots in crime. So we'll see how Denver reacts to it, how the Denver voters and the people of Denver, if they're actually going to do anything about this. Let's go to move on. From coloradopolitics.com, definitely an issue I'm paying very close attention to. State national libertarians in standoff over which can name a presidential ticket to Colorado's ballot. The Colorado Party plans to designate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as national officer, submits party's nominee from July 10th, 2024, Ernest Lunning. We'll zoom in here. The Libertarian Party of Colorado's plans to place independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on the state's ballot hit a snag this week when a national party official filed paperwork instead designating the Libertarians' presidential nominee, Chase Oliver, to Colorado's general election ballot. The move has led to a standoff between the state and national Libertarian parties over which has the authority to put a presidential and vice presidential ticket in front of Colorado voters, with both sides accusing the other of going rogue and suggesting the dispute could land in court. After voting a month ago to reject the ticket nominated by the National Party, the State Libertarians Board announced last week that it would nominate Kennedy after reaching what it described as a groundbreaking partnership with his campaign. Elements of the agreement included securing the candidate's signature on a pledge to abide by a list of the party's principles and an intention to collaborate on fundraising, the party said. But before Colorado Libertarians could file documents making Kennedy and his running mate, California lawyer Nicole Shanahan, the party's official nominees in the state, the National Party Secretary, Karen Ann Harlos of Castle Rock, submitted forms nominating Oliver and his running mate, Michael Termont. A single party may not place multiple candidates for president and vice president onto the Colorado ballot, said Jack Todd, a spokesman for the Colorado Secretary of State's office, in an email to Colorado Politics. The department will accept complete paperwork from a branch of the Libertarian Party when it is submitted. Colorado law is silent on intra-party conflicts regarding candidate nominations. So very, very interesting stuff there. We'll see how this plays out. It's not over yet. National libertarians like Karen Ann Harlos want to see Chase Oliver, the national nominee, on the Colorado ballot. The state party doesn't like Chase Oliver, thinks that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a better bet for Colorado. So we'll see how it plays out over time. Let's move on. From Complete Colorado, page 2, Corey Gaines, July 13th, 2024. Coverage of RTD should include those who foot the bill. Oh, definitely. Denver's Regional Transportation District, RTD, is struggling mightily with their light rail track, and Colorado Public Radio's Nathaniel Miner has done yeoman's work covering it. RTD can't seem to keep their trains running on time as they're managing multiple problems in multiple sections of track. It also seems that, for whatever reason, there doesn't seem to be a lot of clarity on the issue from what I've read. The problems are going to be around for a while. From hearing people testify while waiting my turn to speak at a recent RTD board meeting, I can tell you that there is a lot of frustration among those who depend on light rail to get to work. There were plenty of accusations that the problems are not being managed well. Small wonder, then, that Miner has made this a cottage industry. This is more a saga than a single article. There's the problem, the official reaction to the same, and of course the stories of frustrated riders to cover. Plenty of grist for the mill. So check that out. Of course, I'm glad that Corey is talking about the ballot question for the fall. RTD wants more of your taxpayer money. Hey, we're seeing a theme here, folks. Denver, Jefferson County, RTD. They're not going to be the only ones, but there's a lot of local governments wanting more and more of your money because they can't manage the money they collect, even though it's record amounts. Nonetheless, check this out, especially if you use RTD, especially if you're a Denver Metro voter. This is an important issue to understand for sure. Well, let's go ahead and move on. ColoradoSun.com. Political nonprofit tied to Jared Polis admits to violating Colorado's campaign finance laws will reveal donors. Yikes. Boldly Forward Colorado, created to help Polis begin his tenure as governor, will pay an $18,000 fine and disclose its donors under a settlement agreement with state election officials. So this is from Sandra Fish, July 12th, 2024. A political nonprofit linked to Governor Jared Polis has admitted to violating Colorado's campaign finance laws and will pay an $18,000 fine and disclose its donors under a settlement agreement with state election officials. Boldly Forward Colorado, created in 2018 to pay for Polis's transition team, donated nearly $352,000 last year to Property Tax Relief Now. That issue committee spent close to $3 million to promote Proposition HH, a ballot measure backed by Polis that would have overhauled Colorado's property tax system and made big changes to state spending. Voters overwhelmingly rejected the measure in the November 2023 election. The Public Trust Institute, a conservative political nonprofit, filed the complaint against Boldly Forward in January, arguing its contributions to Property Tax Relief Now were so large that they required the group to file as an issue committee and report its donors. Chris Beale, Colorado's Deputy Secretary of State, signed off on the settlement agreement early Friday. Boldly Forward spent $1.2 million total in 2021, 2022, and 2023, according to the settlement agreement. The contributions to Property Tax Relief Now accounted for 29% of that spending, over the limit set by a bipartisan 2022 law outlining when political nonprofits must report their donors. The law was signed by Polis back in 2022. Yikes. So check that out. Pretty ironic that a law that Jared Polis signed actually came back to bite his little nonprofit in the butt there. $18,000 fine, having to disclose their donors. Very interesting to see who those donors are. Of course, this is Polis's pet project, bringing in some national money, I can only assume, to push raising property taxes here in Colorado. So we'll keep an eye on who those donors end up being. But interesting stuff, especially for those involved in the political nonprofit world. Let's go ahead and move on here. coloradopolitics.com. Second federal judge refuses to dismiss lawsuit against Fort Collins for officers' wrongful DUI arrests. And this is something I talked about last year as well, so really wanted to follow up on this. This is a interesting issue and actually horrible for these people who are falsely accused of DUIs. Judge Nina Wang followed the lead of Judge Charlotte Sweeney and determined another plaintiff credibly alleged Fort Collins' inadequate supervision of a police officer was a factor in his wrongful arrest. This is from July 11th, 2024, Michael Carlick. The second federal judge on Tuesday refused to dismiss Fort Collins from a lawsuit alleging the city's own failures contributed to a police officer's repeated wrongful arrests of motorists who were not actually intoxicated. Carl Sever is one of several arrestees who filed suit over their encounters with Jason Haferman, the former DUI officer for Fort Collins Police Services. Sever's complaint described how Larimer County prosecutors dismissed the drunk driving charge against him after his blood test results showed no intoxication, one of many instances in which Haferman wrongly arrested motorists for driving under the influence. I mean, imagine how devastating this would be. You're not drunk, you haven't drank at all, you get pulled over. This police officer, Jason Haferman, comes up, says you're drunk, arrests you, gives you a DUI, which could potentially be devastating, career ending, all the other problems associated with that. And you didn't even drink at all. It didn't just happen once, folks. This happened multiple times. So I get it. You know, a lot of people out there say you got to support the police, but you got to keep the police accountable as well. They're just as open to abusing their power, abusing the public trust as anybody else. So interesting stuff. Check out that article. Of course, these links are going to be over at freestatecolorado.com under this weekly news roundup little heading there. So check that out. But want to move on here to CPR.org, July 11th, 2024. What 3 state house primaries tell us about the direction of Colorado politics. Zoom in a little bit here. Andrew Kenney and Benty Birkeland. The Denver metro area's representation at the state capitol is going to look different because of last month's primaries, and it may signal a change in how the state's elections are fought. 3 incumbent Democratic representatives lost to challengers in June. Each one represents an area in or near Denver, and all faced well-funded opposition from business and centrist interests. The heated fight between Democrats showed that primary elections in liberal areas are an intense new focus for the state's politics, as the party maintains its control of government, said Democratic political consultant Rick Ritter. It's not just that they lost, but that there was such significantly funded opposition. I've never seen such highly funded opposition to incumbents, Ritter said. The three defeated lawmakers were Representative Elizabeth Epps, who was elected in 2022 and was seeking re-election to a second term in office. She represents House District 6, stretching east from downtown Denver along Colfax Avenue. She was defeated by Sean Camacho. Representative Tim Hernandez, who was appointed by a vacancy committee and had just finished his first session in the legislature. He represents House District 4, a slice of West and Northwest Denver, running near Federal Boulevard. He was defeated by Cecilia Espinoza. Representative Julia Marvin, who was appointed to House District 31, which is anchored in the city of Thornton. She had just finished her first session. She was defeated by Jackie Phillips. Camacho, Espinoza, and Phillips will now head to the general election, where they are likely to win in these heavily Democratic areas. So you got to check this out. I mean, I know I've talked about it before, especially on our live stream, but the amount of money they spent, I mean, it's insane. This article says over $6 million by these big moneyed groups, by Democratic interests. It's these Democratic groups, Democratic candidates coming back and pushing back at them. A lot of progressives are leaving the Democratic Party because they know, they're not welcome there. So interesting dynamic, interesting play. Check out this article to kind of get that little bit of a context and deep dive. We'll be talking a lot about the state legislature as we get closer to the election. All right, last article of the week here. From the denvergazette.com, Aurora Council prepares to opt out of Colorado law banning firearms in government buildings. This is from July 9th, 2024. Kyla Pierce. Aurora Council members have begun to lay the groundwork to allow the city to opt out of a state law prohibiting firearms in so-called sensitive spaces, notably including government buildings. Enacted this year, the Colorado law bans firearms in polling locations, schools, and government buildings, such as council chambers. The legislation contains a provision allowing local governments to opt out of the law. If Aurora ultimately opted out of the law, it won't be the first local government to do so. Last May, Douglas County approved a resolution saying the board will permit people with a valid concealed carry permit to bring a concealed handgun into government buildings in unincorporated Douglas County. So I know other Castle Rock Monument, some other places have done that as well. But nonetheless, check this out. Good to see this Aurora Council standing up for the rights of people in their community. Folks, the fight is local. The fight is at local government. Focus on your state legislature, on your city council, on your county commissioners. I know a lot of people are going to be talking about the presidential election this year, but ultimately, what's going to make the biggest difference in your life is your city council. I mean, look at what's going on in Aurora, Castle Rock, Jefferson County, even RTD, I'd call a local government. So, folks, pay attention to that. Free State Colorado's here to provide some insight, hopefully shed some light on some of these stories. So, I really thank you for tuning in. We'll be talking soon. I'll be going to be talking to a lot of candidates coming up here now that we're getting into election season. So, thank you and take care. We'll see you next time.